There you have it. All right. So our expressive typography and metaphor, we're looking at how do we bring metaphor into our type design? And I'm going to show some examples. Above all, this should be primarily a typographic solution. You're going to create your visuals through typographic means, not illustrative tactics. By and large, the space is flat, and most solutions to this project are best conceived in flat rather than illusionistic space. In other words, there should be no 3D letter forms or otherwise to distort your words to create perspective. Usually a solution that depends on perspective or 3D letter forms is too literal or obvious, and you will be encouraged to explore other ways to express your ideas. So here's some examples. London is demonstrated by what? What is that? It's just type. There's nothing, there's no other elements but type and the arrangement and color of type. What is that making us, what is the metaphor?
A bus?
What kind of a bus?
It's the big double-decker ones.
Right, it's a double-decker bus. And we know that because it's London twice, right? It's the word London twice. So it's immediately telling us there's two levels. And all we're doing is pulling the O's down and changing the color to make us see a bus, a double-decker bus. It doesn't need lights. It doesn't need windows. It doesn't need people. It doesn't need anything else. We read double-decker bus with just the type, just the type. This is one that I pulled off the internet. The rest of these are my student projects from past students. So what do we see with Nashville? Who can tell me what that is?
A guitar.
Yeah, a guitar. Guitar, trying, like, what is Nashville? Their spirit of Nashville was music and, country music at that. So the guitar seemed very appropriate. What about Portland?
Bicycle.
Kind of bicycle, though.
Old school?
Right, it's old school. And the reason they chose an old school bicycle, anyone have any idea why would they do that? Is anyone familiar with Portland and has ever been there? Any familiarity with Portland? There's like a whole show called Portlandia, which kind of gives a hint to.
Isn't there like motto, keep Portland weird or something like that?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Claudia. Their motto is keep Portland weird. And they're known for bikes. They have, a really bikeable city. They have protected bike lanes. They encourage bike riding. So combining the love of bikes in Portland and the keep Portland weird was, okay, we want to include a bike, but not just any bike, a weird bike, a bike you wouldn't really use because it's weird and it's old, right? So that's where that bike came in to play, that it's a weird choice of a bike. Palo Alto. Is anyone familiar where Palo Alto is? Where in the world is Palo Alto?
California?
It is in California. What part of California? Any idea? What are they known for, where Palo Alto is? And there's a...
Is that where all the tech companies are at?
Yes. What makes you think that?
The arrow.
Right, the arrow. The arrow is a cursor, right? And it's indicating, and Palo Alto is Silicon Valley, California, Northern California. The heart of Silicon Valley is Palo Alto. And so the cursor arrow is becoming the A, which means technology right away. We think technology. All right, Cusco. I'm familiar with. I was going to say, Amy might know where Cusco is. And so Peru, right? And so we're looking at symbols of the region and the culture and pulling that in and the shape of the letter forms, and then pulling in a symbol that is of the culture to kind of pull it all together, becoming an O. Venice. Can anyone tell me what that is signifying in that design?
Gondola.
A gondola, exactly. And for those of us who aren't familiar, a gondola is a long, narrow boat that goes through Venice, Italy, has canals with water in between. Instead of streets, they're water canals. And there are these long boats, and the driver of the boat stands. So he's standing in the boat. They wear a black and white striped shirt traditionally, and they have a long oar that steers the boat. And most of Venice is, on the water of these canals. And so using just the letter I as our gondola driver, and then making it taller than anything else, cropping the letter form so you can feel like they're sitting in water. And the boats have this kind of a nose that kind of comes up. And so that's how the arrangement of the letter forms is really shaping the boat. But notice there is no boat. There is no person. The only additional element is the oar, which is just a line. And lastly, Florence. What is that representing? What does that remind you of?
Church.
Absolutely, church. And there's a large cathedral in the middle of Florence. It's a big domed cathedral, and it's like the most picturesque. Any photo of Florence you ever see is this big copper domed cathedral, and so with a cross on the top. And so it's really kind of speaking to that idea of steeple, highest point, cross at the top. So it really immediately speaks to the architecture of the largest building in the middle of the town. So we're really looking at, I'm going to show you a few more. So these are some of them that I have in our project brief, but I also have a few more I'm going to show you. Oops, I'm going to go off our project brief. These are some that I came across on Instagram. And these are created based on architecture. So you can see there's Dubai, and this designer put the building behind it, but these would clearly work without the photos in there. So you have Dubai, Sydney, Australia's Opera House, Paris becomes the Eiffel Tower, Delhi becomes the Taj Mahal, and London becomes Big Ben. I have some of these I pulled up just separately. And so you can see it's just, again, clean, simple type that is just manipulated by not stretching. Notice this type isn't stretched to make this design. It's each individual piece, arm or shoulder has been elongated individually. It's not like they just took the word and stretched it to make that. So I thought those were kind of interesting. And then I also have some samples. Here's Berlin. Here's the final Cusco. I also want to show you some more rural and smaller places, because I think there's a few of those we have in our mix. Let me close these so I don't have too many things open. Computer doesn't get mad at me. Okay, so here's one for a little town in Wisconsin, which is known for fishing. Here's one for Wuhan, China. Here is the little, I have some that are, oh yeah, here's like. Okay, so here's one that is for a little town in Wisconsin. Wild Rose, which has basically a lot of trees and a river running through it. Door County. Los Angeles. Palm Springs. So you get the idea. And I have one that was a, what I'm thinking of, oh yeah, here's one for like a little town up in Wisconsin. Eagle River, which is known for snowmobiling. So bringing in cropping to address tracks in the snow for snowmobiling. So anyway, so lots of things to think about. The key thing to think about when we're working through and aggregating our lists for our metaphors is really things that we can symbolize what they're known for. The most important thing are symbols and what the place is iconic for. Like what is its iconic, known for. And so when we're thinking of you've done your interviews at this point, you then need to do further research, on what you're working you're going to learn about this place. And so beyond what the individual's interview was, you're going to be going further and diving deeper into understanding that place. And then aggregating a list of adjectives. You're going to have a list of adjectives, just like we did before, and create a word map, a mind map, and with the words. And then from there, you want to pick 5. Now, the most important thing as you start picking your key words for this, as you've seen in all of these examples, is it really needs something that we can work with a metaphor on. And so it has to be something that's well known. In other words, it can't be too personal, like I love this place because grandma made me chocolate chip cookies. If the place isn't known for chocolate chip cookies, it wouldn't be a very good metaphor for many people. So it has to be something that's well known for the area. If it's a smaller town, like what are the icon landmarks? For example, is there, a river running through it? Is there, a large monument that's in the area? Or is it something like in Door County, they're known for like cherries? Or is it something where they're known for, whatever? So it's most important to really think about what that metaphor can possibly be. So when you're pulling those 5 keywords, it's even more important than last time to pull things that are something you can really work with to develop these metaphors. So the next part of this process is we're going to be moving into part 2. Now that you've conducted your research, you're going to start the ideation process. And it's going to be just like we did last time. We're going to start thumbnail sketching. So this is going to feel a little more natural to you now because you've done it once already. So now we're going to go back to that thumbnail sketching to try to get as many ideas down as we can. Again, these are not overly refined. The goal here is for many ideas, not a few precious ideas, as many ideas as we can get. And we want to try not editing ourselves. Like, there's no bad ideas, just put them out there. Don't be too precious with them. Don't edit yourself. Like, really get as many ideas down on the page as you can. And you want to consider the following things. Are each of your letters, how are they constructed? How are they designed? When we're thinking about the typeface that you're going to choose, simpler is better. We want to make sure we're not using anything that's overly decorative. If you've noticed all of these examples, there's no overly decorative typefaces. That's your job as a designer, is to make the design, not by choosing the typeface that's overly designed. You want to choose a simpler typeface that allows you to add the design into it. So you want to think about a large type family versus a small. Why am I encourage you to think about, when you're thinking about typefaces, looking at large type families? What does that offer you? What do we think?
That, like, lots of different variations in the letters between like small caps or italics.
Absolutely. You'll have more options. The thing I want you to definitely stay away from is display fonts. Who can tell me what a display font is? Anyone? Want to take a guess? What is a display font? Yeah, Jack.
It's a font intended for like large sizes.
It's a font intended for large sizes, and it doesn't usually have many other options. Impact is one, where there's no options. It's just one version, and sometimes it's only in capital letters. It might not even have a lowercase. It certainly doesn't have different weights. It doesn't have italic. It doesn't have options. It's like an orphan. It doesn't have a family. Okay. So you want to choose a typeface that has a big, robust family. Okay. So when you're doing your sketching, you want to start thinking, is it going to be a sans serif typeface? Is it a serif typeface? We don't need to worry about what font it is, but you do need to start thinking what would work better for my situation, a serif or a sans serif, bold or thin or condensed or extended. What are those different elements that would help my messaging? You want to experiment. You want to think about cropping. You want to think about, what can I do to help kind of further the meaning? You want to work tightly within the constraints provided, but thinking about, like, how can I customize the letter form to get us to where I want to be? How far can you push legibility? What are some things I can do to push that metaphor and that idea? So again, you're going to be working in 3x3 squares in a grid, as many that will fit on your page. In each square, you want to sketch the name of your city and approximately the general visual qualities you envision the typeface to have. Remember, we're not using actual typefaces, but it can be helpful to look at typefaces to get some inspiration. It
When we
also can be, go ahead, what?
So when we get to that point, can we mix typefaces, or do they all have to be within the same family?
Nope, you can mix. You can mix typefaces, and here's another thing. I'm not limiting you. You can choose any typeface you want. There's no limits this time. I'm taking off the handcuffs. So you guys are now free to go explore all 4,000 typefaces in the Adobe font catalog. So that freedom can be a little daunting, but you're free. You're free. You're free. But I want you to make good choices, and I want you to hear what I'm saying. I don't want display faces. I don't want overly decorative faces. Make sure you're still thinking about classic faces that you can manipulate to create the design, that they're not designed for you. Okay. All right, so you're going to be doing all of the sketches, exploring the different typeface configurations. This is the time to try out ideas. If you struggle with doing sketching, set a timer and do it in little bits, little design sprints, 30 minutes at a time, and then walk away and then come back later and do another 30 minutes. We're going to be doing 30 thumbnail sketches, and we're going to post those to your individual Slack channel. And you're going to also put them on your mural board. Okay. So 30 from Tuesday, 30 for Tuesday. And remember, we're not doing like total pictures. We want to kind of really think of what we're doing with our letter forms. The key is the letter forms. If you add another element, it's one element. It's not a whole bunch of elements. It's one element. So you have to restrain yourself in the desire to illustrate, because I know a lot of us want to illustrate. This isn't illustration, it's working with the type. Okay, any questions about what we're doing for homework?